Brought to you in part by Monadnock Flooring and Decorating, offering quality sales, service, and installation for over 35 years on Production Avenue next to Subaru of Keene. Hey everybody, welcome to A Culinary Journey. I'm Luca. This journey is all about answering your questions. If you go to luca@cheshiretv.org, you can send in any questions you have, and I will make sure I answer them when we do these shows. Today, we're going to do all shows with your emails, and I'll answer every question you have. And we'll see you because your culinary journey starts now. Hey everybody, we're going right to the mailbag. We're going to email me at luca@cheshiretv.org and we'll answer all your questions. Today, Sheila from New Hampshire wrote me about cutting an onion. She sees me cut it all the time and she wants me to just concentrate on it and show you how to cut an onion. And that's what I'm going to do. All right, so first thing we need is make sure you have a sharp knife and make sure you have an onion if you want to cut an onion. It's real simple. The thing we're going to do first is make sure we cut off both sides. All right? Cut right down the middle, and we'll peel the outer layer. Now I'm showing you on a red onion. This could be on the white onion or any type. And it usually works well with shallots too, something on the smaller side. And you just want to peel off the outer layer. Now I'm going to show you two ways to cut an onion because there are some people who believe that one way is better than the other, but I'm going to show you both ways that's out there, and I'll show you what I do first. First, I come to the edge of the cutting board so that way I have my whole knife is back far enough that I could get into the onion. And with my fingers at the top, I just make a couple of inserts right through the center. All right? Through two of them right through the center. Then I come down on the top. And again, that's where your knife has to be sharp. And I come right down through the top. All right? Now I've created all these little same size pieces of onion. And with my fingers as my guide hand, or my knuckle, my very first knuckle is my guide, I cut to the size onion I want, going into the onion in a rocking motion like that. See? And you should get perfect uniform slices. Look at that. All right? So now you have those uniform slices. What this does is if you go all the way through, you're going to end up with a piece at the end that is a little bit bigger, or you haven't broken down. And this is where you use another chopping technique where it keeps your knife on the board all the time, and you just go back and forth. And this is where you do a final chop on this until you have all the same sizes. Well, there's one other way to do it where you basically cut down from the top of the onion. I find this to be a little tougher to do for me because I like the other way better. And holding the onion here, do the same thing. Come right down again. And you will get a very, very uniform onion slice. Take the final pieces, chop it up, and you have uniform cut onions. Now, here's a little quick tip you might want to use about how not to cry when you're chopping onion. The less you cut, the more direct cuts you have, the younger the onion is, and the fact that maybe it's just better to let somebody else cut the onion, you won't cry. Trust me on that one. Question time again. John from North Swansea actually emailed me and asked me what Brunoise was. Well, the first time I pronounced it, I called it Brunoise, and I got in trouble in school. But it's a French term for how you cut something, and I'll show you right now. All right, John, so this is what I'm going to show you is how to do a Brunoise. It all starts with a couple of other terms that you have to follow. Now what we're going to use is a sweet potato to kind of show you what a Brunoise would be, and that's how we will learn. Now what I'm going to do is square it off, because that's where we need to start off with a nice square. And in this case, it's something you would utilize the outside for, but we're just to show you, this is where we're going to go. So we get rid of all that. We're going to cut these down into batons. That's your first cut, and that would be what that is, a baton, and it almost look like a thick cut French fry. We could also then cut these into julienne, which is where we're going to get our brunoise from. Cut it a little bit thinner. Then we cut those thin. And when you hear the word julienne, which is more like a shoestring, is what we get here. You're getting a little more close to a julienne, a little bit thinner. Right? You can even get this to that next level. There we go. That'll be even thinner. And then you have a fine brunoise when you get from this. So we have our cuts. Let's start with this, our julienne, and we're going to cut that down to a small dice. And that's basically what you're doing, is a small, small dice. Now, it takes a lot of practice. There are a lot of chefs that are out there that could cut perfect brunoise in a nice, nice small dice. You have a little bit more of a medium dice from here. That's a different way you want to cut it. And why do you cut it uniformly like this? It's so that you have uniform cooking times and it looks really pretty. Depending on how delicate you want it to look, that's how much smaller you want to make your cuts. And it takes a lot of time and practice to get these perfect. You're probably, most of the time, if you're making stews, you're going to want to use the bigger cut or the medium dice for a brunoise. If you're doing a quick saute, and it sautés very quickly. And actually something like a sweet potato where you think it takes a lot of time, you cut them down this fast, you could actually make an amazing accompaniment to your dinner just by cutting them small and cooking them with a little bit of milk or a little bit of cream. It comes out amazing. That's cut brunoise. If you have any other questions, email me, luca@cheshiretv.org. All right, time to go to the emails again. And Mary from, wow, where is this? Can't even pronounce some of the cities in New Hampshire. But anyway, she's from New Hampshire. And she asked me about the difference between poaching and cooking and searing and sauteing. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about dry heat and moist heat cooking. I'll tell you right now. All right, so let's talk about the difference between moist heat cooking and dry heat cooking. Now, when you talk about moist heat cooking, think of something like a poach. That's moist heat. Or you're boiling or what have you. That's using moist heat cooking. Cooking pasta is moist heat. It's a liquid. And that's poaching, and we'll take a perfect example is a piece of fish. We're not seasoning this at all. This is a vegetable stock. You could season this however you want. We could put in fennel, we could put in flavors, we could put in wine. And then by taking the fish and putting it in there, that's going to incorporate all the flavors, keep it moist, and make some great cooking technique. Dry heat cooking is adding a fat to a pan. Now, even though the fat is liquid, in this case the oil, it's still considered dry heat because fat is part of the protein mix. So dry heat cooking would be searing, pan roasting, sauteing, grilling. Those are all part of dry heat cooking. And that's taking the same type of salmon and we add that to the dry heat and we start searing. Does a couple of different things. Dry heat cooking caramelizes more. It's going to bring out some of the natural sugars. But when you're seasoning, you want to season directly to the fish and not into the moist heat cooking. So in this case, we have a couple of things. We have the moist fish taking on the flavors, or the moist heat imparting flavors into the fish, cooking it from the outside in. The sear, the sear is allowing it to sear and caramelize and create more flavor. It's what you add to each of the cooking techniques that's really going to make the difference. So dry heat cooking, searing, sauteing, pan roasting, those type of things. Moist heat, that's the braising, that's the boiling, that's the poaching. That's the difference. If you have a question about cooking, email me, Luca@cheshiretv.org. All right, question time again. This time, someone's asking me about pancetta and bacon. Happens all the time. People want to know when I talk about pancetta what it is, what's bacon, what's the difference? Well, I'll tell you right now. All right, so what's the difference between pancetta and bacon? When you look at the two, they look very similar because they come from the same part, which is the pork belly. If you unwrap a pancetta wheel and you make this long, it's one long pork belly. Pancetta is usually then wrapping the whole pork belly and then curing it with a salt pepper mixture and hanging it to dry for up to 6 months. Now that's what pancetta is. Actually, when you cure bacon like this, it's edible at this point right away. What it is a different curing process, usually found in Italian cooking. It's done mostly, you'll find pancetta in Italian pastas, or we even wrap them. You can even make little pancetta chips. A lot of cool things in that. All right, bacon, most of us know bacon. It looks like pancetta, but it's usually a little bit fattier, I guess depending on the type you get. And it's a smoked product. These are smoked, but not fully cooked. You want to still cook off that fat or render that down. The cured fat on the pancetta is edible, but it's really great rendered down as well. The fat on the bacon would need to be cooked down. If you get a really good quality bacon, it adds a lot of flavor. What's great about bacon, you'll get it in different flavors also. You can do an applewood smoke or different type of smokes, and there are even some maple flavors. Pancetta, generally a one type of flavor, you're adding to it. So if it says pancetta on a recipe, I would recommend getting prosciutto instead to substitute. If you do substitute, then bacon. Bacon has a lot stronger flavor. That's the difference between pancetta and bacon. If you have a question, email me, luca@cheshiretv.org. All right, mailbag time. This was actually a challenge. When I was reading my emails just the other day, someone wrote to me, they heard that Gordon Ramsay said that the best way to see if a chef knew how to cook is how he made a scrambled egg. Well, how does Gordon Ramsay do his scrambled eggs, and what should I do if I was ever going to cook for him? Well, here's how I'm going to show you how to cook a Gordon Ramsay scrambled egg. So how do we make a scrambled egg Gordon Ramsay style? Well, it's pretty easy, but it's really different than what you might think of for making a scrambled egg, all right? So here's a Gordon Ramsay breakfast that he's made before that I'm going to show you how to make right now. Okay, here we go. First of all, it's about certain ingredients that he wants to put for his breakfast. And I'll just add some, we'll just add this to it because I'm hungry. We're going to add some mushrooms and some grape tomatoes. If you actually watched him, he's got beautiful vine tomatoes to work with this. But we're going to do with what we have available so we can kind of mimic what's there. All right, we'll put a little salt and pepper on both of those and let that start cooking down. We'll actually have some toast with it, but we'll talk about that later. But we'll let those kind of break down. Now, the egg part is interesting. What you're usually used to doing is taking, let's turn you down a little. You're making a lot of noise over there. Settle down. All right, the egg part is interesting because it's taking the items from the egg and actually putting them into a pot before it's really hot. So it's cracking the egg, getting them right in, and not scrambling beforehand. Everybody thinks about that, right? Think about scrambling beforehand? No, he takes the eggs and the butter and a simple plastic whisk, and the key is not stopping. It's actually mixing while it's in there. If you break down the eggs or you start cooking the eggs before they get in the pan, or you start breaking them down, you actually find that you're breaking down the components of the egg that'll stop it from making nice and rich and creamy. And it's not about keeping it low and slow. It's about removing it from the pan every once in a while and then letting the heat in the pan kind of scramble your eggs for you. And then you bring it back and you bring it back. Now, I will tell you this. There are a lot of great ways to make scrambled eggs. Please, 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 don't let this be the only one. But this is a cool, cool method that's a lot different and makes a great quality product. But you do have to stay with it at all times. And you have to make sure you don't overcook the eggs. So we have the butter in there and we have the eggs, and we're not stopping. See, we just got to keep stirring, keep it moving around till it comes together. And it's a lot of this back and forth kind of thing. While that's going on, our tomatoes are just getting a little bit roasted. Our bread is getting warm, and we're making these amazing scrambled eggs. So if you could check them out, they're starting to kind of come together. Now the idea is to make scrambled eggs that aren't runny, but still soft, moist, and delicious. And as they're starting to come together, that's the last time we want them on the pan. Here's where we need to cool them down a little bit. He'll use a little creme fraiche. In my case, I'm going to use a little mascarpone. We want to stop the cooking process and then just add some creaminess to the eggs. And watch this. Our beautiful scrambled eggs with some great toast on the side. Fluffy, rich, and delicious. The one thing you notice I didn't do is I didn't season the eggs ahead of time because that also breaks them down. We'll just put a little salt and pepper on top or near the end of the cooking process. We'll get our mushroom and our tomatoes on there. And you have an incredible breakfast, Gordon Ramsay style, with eggs and mushrooms. That's how you make the perfect scrambled eggs. If you have a question, email me, luca@cheshiretv.org. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of A Culinary Journey. Like I said, if you have questions, email me, luca@cheshiretv.org. I'll answer all your questions on our email show, and looking forward to see you then. But until then, I'll see you on our next Culinary Journey. Brought to you in part by Monadnock Flooring and Decorating, offering quality sales, service, and installation for over 35 years on Production Avenue next to Subaru of Keene.